Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today's guest is one of my first clients. She's been a client of ours for ages now. I love her to death. Her name is Sophia Wixson, owner of Aesthetics by Sophia. Part of the reason I adore Sophia so much, to be completely candid out of the gate here, is that her city where she lives is the same as my city. However, my city is in Oregon. So we are two
Oh,
stars in the same constellation. But anyhow, Sophia, thanks for jumping on the show today. We're glad that you're here. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Of
It's
course.
exciting.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun today. So, as a starting point, why don't we give the listeners some background on the universe of Sophia, what you do, and how you got into this whole world of beauty?
So I've been in the world of beauty professionally since 2008. But I have been an entrepreneur my whole life ever since I was like 15. So I've always started out with photography. So that was, and I used to do side jobs and things like that, even through high school. And then had my own little cleaning business with my babies when they first were born, so I could, take them with and all that. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do any more cleaning. I want to go to beauty school because it's something that I always have had a, passion for. And I've always taken good care of my skin and do, beauty treatments ever since I was young. So I guess it just was kind of something meant to be. So I went back to school in 2008 and got my license. And right out the gate, I started and I got into a really great spa, like the top spa in my area at the time. They're no longer in business, but uh, so I got that job. I worked there for 4.5 years, built up a great clientele, learned so much. And then I actually briefly went out on my own with a lady I had went to school with, and she had her own studio. So I started with her and shared a room with her. And then I moved my business into another salon, was there for 2 years. And then we all of a sudden decided we wanted to move to Virginia. And so then it was really scary because I built up my clientele and I was, going somewhere totally new. So I got there and was an esthetician at an Ulta, and we were only there for a short year, and we realized, you know what, this is not our place. So we moved back. And then instead of going to another spa or salon, I decided um, to start my own business because at Amore Spas where my business is located in, and the owner had wanted me to come there for the past few years, and I just wasn't ready to move. And so now that is 4.5 years later, and I'm just my own independent business, and I specialize in skincare treatments. I've done all kinds of different things, but I do body care treatments, little waxing, but my most passionate thing is skincare and anti-aging and really like transforming the skin. So
Yeah.
that was just me in a little nutshell right there.
Very cool.
Three
So
kids,
you,
so I work around, work around that. So it's nice having my own business. I can do my own scheduling.
yeah, wow. So three little minions at home, begging for your attention around the clock, and you somehow found a way to run a vibrant business dealing in
Yes.
skincare, body contouring, and the rest of it. How have you managed to pull that off? Because I think a lot of people right now that are maybe single moms or even partnered up that have kids that are now suffering from the weight that is the obligation to play professor on Zoom, as a lot of students are now home because of the COVID shutdowns and the rest of it. How have you managed to keep your sanity with having an army of kids at home and running the business? Are there any sort of like actionables that you've maybe implemented since this whole COVID thing started? Or what would you attribute your success to preserving your sanity and being able to operate the business and be a mom at the same time?
Um, well, a little bit. I try and stick to my schedule so my kids know my schedule. But it definitely has been a lot more challenging. My my older two are in high school and middle school, so they are actually doing e-learning. They've been kind of shut down the whole school, but so far my third grader is still in elementary in person, so that is huge because lower elementary is very hard to do that. But I mean, I do, but I'm like, I'm praying for that to stay for a
Yeah.
while. But so yeah, I mean, I just try and stick to my schedule as much as I can so that I can the kids kind of know when mom's here, and my husband knows my schedule. And so
Yeah.
that's been one thing, because I used to, when I first started, my schedule was all over the place. I'd be like, oh, I'll come in here and there for you. No, I have to have my schedule to keep my sanity. So that's one thing that once I finally was like, okay, this is my hours, this is what I'm working. Not saying I don't squeeze in here and there, but I try to keep that. So that's been, I guess, helpful for me since I did that.
Yeah, this is something that I was talking to my team with this morning during our team meet. Is that I think a lot of our potential client base, and maybe even some of our current clients, frankly, aren't necessarily as organized as they could be. And so there's a need to, for example, in the case of our universe, which, we're running a sales team, is texting people ahead of the calls to remind them, hey, we've got a meeting set up. Wanted to double check that time's still good for you, et cetera. Because I don't think a lot of people run their life intentionally by way of doing things like time blocking or calendaring. For example, for me personally, from the hours of 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., I don't care if God were to call me, I would ignore it. No one gets my time because I'm noodling, just surfing the internet, just waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm intentional about how I spend that hour-long block. And then obviously in other areas, there's different ways of doing that with, for my regular work and the rest of it. But is that something that you do yourself where you're blocking out time where you say, listen, I'm only doing this between the hours of this and nothing else can interfere with that? And if so, how has that changed your life? Because I'm assuming it's had impact if you do.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to answer work calls after like 5 p.m. or like Sundays. I'll get back with you on Mondays. So that's definitely but I mean, my morning routine, I have the same morning routine. I have to get up and do my treadmill, and so I do believe in routines because that just helps keep me on track.
Yeah.
But I do have a little bit of I I still do random things too. So, but I like before, like I always do client confirmations. Now I'm very kind of like old school with my business, so I still like my paper and pencil book so I can write it down. I have not done digital or online because I know how to I don't know, I just want to be able to have 100% control. So me personally, I'm kind of old school that way. So I personally text my clients. I don't have like an automated text, but that is definitely huge, is confirming appointments and things like that, and
Yeah.
being so that they can give you time to reschedule if you need to. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that answered your question, but yeah.
No, it does. It does. So, I mean, from the sounds of it, you're largely operating your day to day out of a calendar.
Calendar and my cell phone. I mean, I have my social media and stuff too, but I mean, I run my whole business off my cell phone. Even my credit card machine's on my cell phone. So
Wow. Very cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Putting that thing to
yeah,
use as it
yes,
should be. Instead of
yes,
just using it
exactly.
to search for cat memes at 2 a.m. on Reddit. Using the phone
Right.
for what it can do for the business is obviously a better deployment of its utilities. So that's very cool. So, because the reason by the way, to give you some context, the reason why I'm curious about this running your life on a calendar is that I think a lot of people are extraordinarily disorganized, and that's in a number of different facets. So I'll ask you a few about those, or about a few of those rather, here in a moment, like KPIs, things that you track towards goal-wise of the business, et cetera, to give the listeners maybe a bit of a glimpse of hope as to why it would behoove them to do things like calendar your meetings, and then, oh, by the way, stay true to them, and things like time blocking. So, for example, my team right now, we're blowing up with loads and loads of meetings. I think Preston today on my team has 35 meetings or whatever, and he has from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. not a single break. That is
Oh,
going to
wow.
produce insanity. So
Yes.
in a world where you're vying, or rather people are vying for your time, if you don't take control of your time, the world will control it for you, and you will be left with the breadcrumbs. And the only way to get ahead of that is to be intentional about how you deploy your time, how you spend it, where you invest it, et cetera. And a calendar, frankly, is the best tool for that, I think.
Oh yeah, I have to have my calendar. Yeah, I have to write things down like that so that I know it gets done. Write my appointments. Usually, like Mondays, like today, I schedule things like this. I do classes, I do my emailing or my social media posting. So Monday's usually my kind of like side of whatever I can do for my business. Usually is on Mondays because I don't
Boring
like.
stuff,
Yeah,
listeners, like dinners
yeah.
with Kylie Jenner that Sophia is having weekly, and other
So
Class
I'd be
A
like, that's kind of
celebrities.
you're right. That's just
Because
kind
she's that cool. She's that cool. Those are
of
the circles that she runs in. Those are the circles that she runs in. Well, so maybe you could share with the listeners, because I think some of the listeners are like, why would I need a calendar? I just wait in my office until someone shows up. Which I mean, if you're doing that in 2020, you're missing out. But how have you set up your calendar? Do you use a specific type of calendar? What does that look like? Do you have devices talking to each other, like your iPad, your iPhone, or whatever? Maybe give the listeners an idea of exactly what that looks like, so they can steal the idea and implement it themselves.
So I guess if you are old school like me, which I know a lot of small business owners that are independent like me, I just get a timed weekly as from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 15-minute block, so I can just block out my. That's where I program all my appointments with my clients and personal appointments. But if you're not old school like me, then, utilizing your Google Calendar or whatever, but, or there's all kinds of different other apps that can help you schedule. But that is definitely something, you know, having your schedule written down and what you're going to be working. And I also, like with my clients, like I pull out my calendar. Pre-booking has been the most successful thing, like with my building your books and making them be consistent, is pulling out that calendar and saying, when would you like to come see me next, or this is when I'd recommend to see you next. So that calendar is super important, to just continue keeping your business busy, is power of the pre-booking.
Yeah. So at what point in your, let's just call it funnel for lack of a better term, are you pulling out the pre-booking card, so to speak? Is this on conversions when you have a net new lead potential customer calling in, or is this after treatments, or at what point in your process do you use this pre-booking concept, and what does that look like specifically?
Well, like if I have a client that comes in at the very end of our treatment when we're finalizing, like we're checking out, doing products or whatever, checking out for their treatment, then I, tell them when I recommend to come see them again. So I usually, at that moment, is usually when I do it when I'm with the client. But if I have a client that calls me, I have my book right next to me, so I'm not like, oh, wait, hold on, let me get to know. I have my book here, anticipating that person's going to book an appointment, because they wouldn't have called me if not. Because I don't really pay for advertising, so it's like my business has been word of mouth building. And so that's kind of, but yeah, definitely having, if a client customer calls you, make sure you have your appointment book ready right there. So when you're on the phone, you're like, okay, this is what I have, what works for you. And then you can give them the options, and you have your everything right there ready for you.
Yeah. So what are you using for software for tracking this stuff? Do you have, I think you mentioned that you have some sort of digitized tracking software for your appointments? Are you using something like MindBody or?
So my actual physical appointment book is just it's a paper book. It's not like
Okay.
electronical. I'm just like, I like my paper.
Yeah,
And some of
sure.
those people out there, they will relate to me that they like their paper. And then some people are like, no way would I do it on paper. I can't even. So just me and that just kind of works. I'm not saying I won't eventually, migrate over to but for right now, it's worked for my books. And when I pull it, it's really easy for me to flip through and write my appointment in and
Yeah.
know how long I need to book it for. So for me, it works. But for my like credit cards and my, when I'm checking people out, I just use Square. I mean, I'm not promoting whatever, but for me, it's worked. And so that's how I kind of track my sales.
Yeah.
And then I also have now I have a book lady and an accountant. So I mean, I've always had an accountant, but I have a bookkeeper now that has really helped me this year. And just keeping everything where it's supposed to be on the back end, because that is my least favorite thing.
Sure. As it is for pretty much everyone, by the
I
way.
know, right? So like
Well,
I need some help in that area. So that is something new I've added this year, is just having somebody help me with that. So
yeah. I think so. There's two things I want to touch on there. We'll come back to the first, which is the offloading, the booking stuff, and the tracking your books and accounting. We'll come back to that in a moment, though. I think listeners that are in a position where you don't know where to start or what's possible in the way of automation for scheduling would behooved, or I guess would be behooved. Sure. Let's go with that English. You would be behooved, or it would be advantageous for you to explore a scheduling software that's pretty cheap, like Calendly, where you have automation set up on the back end. So, as an example of what this might look like, and this is one thing that I think dentists, frankly, do really well. At least my dentist does this. Is that there's effectively a funnel. So when I go in and I've had my cleaning or whatever, they say, what date do you want to come in? And I say, I don't care. It's 6 months from now. I'll probably change it anyway. Just you pick a date and tell me. I put it on my calendar, done. And then I forget about it. And then I completely forget about it. And then I'm thinking one day as I'm brushing my teeth, wow, I've got some stains. I should probably stop smoking tobacco. Just kidding. But I need to go to the dentist. And then lo and behold, a week before my dental appointment, I get a text saying, hey, we're excited to see you for your annual cleaning in X days on this time at this date at our location. Text 1 to confirm, text 2 to, lose my number or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God they texted me because I forgot. So thank you for doing that. So Calendly is a really good tool to use for that. Obviously, there's other softwares like MindBody, et cetera, that are a bit more Cadillac-esque. But for a cheap solution, for those of you that are estheticians or running one-man army type shops of whatever variety, chiropractic or otherwise, you might explore something like Calendly, where you not only can book a meeting with them or a treatment time or whatever, you can also capture that lead data and jam that into your CRM. Maybe again, that's MindBody or something different. And then moreover, you can automate the follow-up to make sure that they show up by way of emails, by way of texts. And the more you can automate, the better you're going to be, the freer you're going to be with your time and sanity, which dovetails into this next question, which is that there was a moment when you decided, I'm going to offload the burden of tracking my books and my accounting. When did you know it was right to hire somebody to help you with that?
Last year, well, when I upgraded and added my cryoskin machine, it really upped my business. And I was like, okay, I need a little bit more help now. And like just entering and calculating and all that stuff. So, so that's kind of like where it was when my business kind of took a big jump, I guess, last year before
So
Corona.
there was a tipping point. Yeah, exactly. We should just start referring to time as AC, or I guess BC and AC, before
Right.
COVID and after COVID. 2020 AC after COVID. I guess we're still in the middle of it, but in any case, uh, so there was a moment where you had explosive growth, and you realized, wow, I cannot keep up. I need to outsource this. How did you feel when you decided to do that on the other side?
I mean, it's, it's a little bit, you're like, oh, do I want to spend the money on this? Do I want, is it worth it or whatever? But she actually needed skincare treatments and I needed her help. So that's when I like to trade or barter with services. So that's actually the way we pay each other, is with her talent and my talent to do the skin. So that, I mean, then that made it more like, okay, I can do this. She's happy now, and I'm happy. Are you there? Sorry,
Yep.
someone called me. Uh,
No
so
worries.
yeah, so that's kind of, it was. Sometimes I feel like I need to outsource for maybe social media or something, because that's my next least favorite thing to do. Because that's where I guess I lack on the programming or scheduling time for my social media on a consistent basis, which I know you're supposed to be consistent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Another
might
call
be,
for time blocking, right? Maybe carving out
yeah,
15 minutes every single Thursday to do just that. And if you can control your
yeah,
calendar, you control your life. And by the way, this same concept can be deployed with a number of different things. Maybe it's doing the banal, god awful tasks of XYZ that you hate doing, which we'll come back to in a second because you were just teasing at something that I want to peel into. But also, I think a lot of people, especially in life under the blanket of COVID, is that they struggle to know why they're still humming along and what they're working for. So they've lost their why. And so for those that don't know what their why is, why they're in business, why they're continuing on, why they get out of bed, et cetera, or who they serve, what their customer looks like, et cetera, time blocking is the antidote because you can carve out 30 minutes a night where you would otherwise be watching, well, if you're me, I don't know, Suits or Billions or Succession or whatever Netflix drama. And instead, you take that 20, 30, whatever minutes and devote it to being intentional about how you're spending your time doing something that will improve the quality of the business. And that could be any number of things that we've mentioned or haven't mentioned. So you might try that, listeners, if that's sounds like you. But you mentioned, though, that let me see if I'm piecemealing this correctly. When you decided to outsource your booking, you did it because you were sick of doing it, you hated doing it, and now the next thing that you, I don't want to say detest the most, but it's something that you dislike is social media, and so it's that you're looking to outsource now. So would you suggest to the listeners that when it comes to choosing what to outsource, which if you're not doing that in some area of the business, you're making a mistake because you cannot do everything yourself, is that a reliable way that you would suggest the listeners decide what they should outsource if they're constrained or limited on their budget to outsource things? Is what I dislike the most or something like that?
oh yeah, that's, I mean, whatever kind of like that you feel that you put off the most, or you don't enjoy doing the most, or you're not as confident in, or wherever you feel like that it would be beneficial to have somebody else to help you. Because I mean, I'm 100. I mean, I feel great in the treatment room. That's my favorite thing. I don't need help there. I just need help on the back office. That's my least favorite thing to do. So yeah, I would definitely, wherever you're feeling you're not excited about or having more fun and you can do that, I would definitely do something that you're not as confident in or have time for or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So for listeners that are struggling to keep up, they're drowning in an ocean of growth, which a lot of people are experiencing right now, even in the middle of COVID, because people are looking to get out of their houses. Consumer spending has actually increased. GDP last quarter, I think, increased by some 30 some odd percent, and consumer spending is only down by, I think, 2 or 3% overall, based on data pre-COVID. So whatever the case, people are
Mhm.
still spending money on beauty. It's an industry that'll never go away. But for those that are
Yeah.
struggling to keep up, let's put a pin in this because this is important, I think, for those trying to figure out what to outsource, because a lot of people are resistant to do that because they don't want to give up control. You would say that take an inventory of the things that you dislike doing the most, or maybe the things that you're the least well suited to do,
Yes.
accounting, website creation, whatever, and just outsource it. And if you can, do what you did, which is find a symbiotic relationship where it doesn't truly cost you anything monetarily, but you can just
Yeah.
trade and barter to get the outcome that you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Because I mean, if it's something, because there's always something that, a specialist of something that can, somebody else that you guys can help each other out. And I mean, that's how I get my hair done and my massages. And then you learn and you guys can promote and tell people about each other too. So that's like kind of how I built my business just too, like making connections with other specialists in the industry. And I've done a lot, I mean, not like you'll have to always trade for services, but that's been helpful. And then people getting to know what I do, and I can know what they do. So then I know how, and then I can feel confident referring somebody to them. So it's just building those relationships and connections with people so that, so that's kind of how I've worked it.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, let's change gears here a touch and get into some of your thinking, mental models, heuristics, call it what you will, on how you approach the decision to acquire a new device, a new service, a new skincare line, whatever. And maybe we'll make it
Mhm.
easy and we'll just say a device, because I think a lot of people, according to the American Med Spa Association, the two things that people are thinking about the most are growth and adding new
Mhm.
devices. And so I think a lot of
Absolutely.
listeners would likely benefit from getting some thinking or insights on your thinking on how you approach making a decision for, here it is. Top 10 opportunities according to AmSpa from last year's State of the Industry report. 41% say that adding a new device, service, or procedure is their biggest opportunity. Number two is growth, which I don't know if growth is an opportunity. It's something the same, same
Yeah.
thing. But in any case, we'll say that the donkey will pin the tail on here is the adding new device or service as the biggest opportunity. And I think a lot of people get it wrong because there's an ocean of options to choose from. So when it comes to for you, Sophia, deciding what device to add for pick anything, I don't know, facials, body contouring, skin tightening, whatever. How do you
Yes.
approach the decision to add a new device? Talk us through your thinking, if you would.
Okay, so that's something I'm always adding in new treatments. So this is something I do all the time. So when I go, I first of all, as I hear my clients and what they're needing, I always try to look for something that I can learn and grow for the needs of my clients. And so I know everybody has their own business, but just whatever you think that your clients are kind of talking about or feel like you can do to help, that's where I go. So, I'm always either, I carry 3 professional lines, either learn like the new treatment they're doing or throw in a new treatment or a new product. But then I also like add new modalities or new devices. So last year, was my big investment, which was my scariest investment, would be the cryoskin machine. And I remember I was actually on Facebook and I seen an ad for it, and I was like, "What is this device?" Because I was looking for something for firming and toning, because I had a machine that I actually had won at a beauty show, and unfortunately, the device kept having problems and stuff. I did get great results, so I was looking for something for firming and tightening. And then when I seen that, that's when I was like, okay. And I start researching about it, and then I, got the call and everything, and it was quite a long process because it was actually my most expensive piece of equipment. Because usually when I go to invest in a piece of equipment or a new treatment, it's like, okay, how much is this going to cost me? How many treatments am I going to have to do of this service to make back my investment? All that kind of stuff. So buying the cryoskin machine was like, ooh, okay, but I just had this gut feeling like, and I even bought it. I didn't even try it before. And so that was, it's definitely scary to sometimes invest, but if you don't invest and you don't learn new things, and that's how we grow. And I end up being like, I'm in love with my machine. I'm not just saying that because it's part, but it has changed my business, so I'm very happy with my investment. And just going with it. And I had, for this, it was something really big that I talked with my husband about it, and he didn't quite understand it, but I was like, just trust me, I can do this. And the results I get with my clients' skin, on the face, body, everywhere, it's just been great. But since then, I've already invested in 2 other machines and gotten certified since then over the past couple of years too, because I have like goals of things that I want and more things because I'm really results driven with my treatments. I really like to see an impact on the skin, whether it's just from a quick little 30-minute treatment to treatment series. It really depends on the client and what they're looking for. So I always like to learn new things. I usually, my clients, a lot of time they're like, so what do you have now? You know, if they haven't seen me in a few months, and because they're always used to me learning new things, or, you know, a new product come out or whatever. So that's just, you got to keep it fresh. You got to keep, you got to learn new things, because otherwise, like, I have to learn new things just to keep my brain stimulated, because I just want and need to know more, so it's definitely good to invest in your business, even if it's scary, but you just need to do your way out. It's going to cost this much. I'm going to need to do this many treatments or whatever. And go with, sometimes it can be scary, but go with your gut feeling, and the more you learn and there's training, it'll work out good.
Yeah. You said something that I think we should open the hood on, which is that I hear my clients with respects to what they're interested in, what they want, what they're after, etc. So here's what I suspect is the best way to get an actual thermostat reading on what is hot in the mind of your customer. I think a lot of people get this wrong, and I'd like to get your feedback on this if you agree or disagree. What I see is that people say, "Oh, I'm going to do a survey. I'm going to go ask my customers if they would pay to have this." The problem with that seems to be the chasm between what people say and what they do is as wide as the Mariana Trench, or I guess Grand Canyon. It's pretty
Oh yeah.
wide, so it's not reliable. Is the point that I'm making? So I'm wondering if you've maybe you've thought of this, or maybe you just do this naturally, or if you would agree or whatever. That maybe the best way to get an idea, to put your thumb on the pulse of what the buyer, your customer, is actually after, is to essentially elicit that out of them without asking them directly if they would pay for XYZ. So here's what I mean specifically. During consultations, for example, when you're asking the customer to be what their goal is, there's a way in which you could extract out of them what they're actually after without asking it directly. So I'm curious, how do you get people to tell you what they actually want, to where they actually execute on what they say they want and then ultimately buy it from you or pay you for the treatment, et cetera? In other words, how do you get your thumb on the pulse of what your customers are looking for so that you can make an intelligent decision on what to add to the business?
Well, like, just kind of like when they're in there, you're like, oh my gosh, my eyelids are so droopy, or my lip lines are so, I got so many wrinkles, or my neck is so saggy, and oh, this extra. So it's like you're always listening to what your clients are plugging in. So like I was, like, and you kind of just putting that in a mental note of like, oh man, I maybe should learn something more for eye lifts, or I should learn something more for body, or contouring or whatever. So and then when I learn that service or whatever, and I get excited, and then I start telling them about it, I don't, it's like I'm just sharing what I'm learning, and they get excited about it. And, it might be for some people, it might not be for some people. And then sometimes even when I'm like doing that, I have a specific few clients that are, people that I know that, well, more than a few, but you know what I mean? It's just like oh, I'm trying to think of the word here.
You're like inner circle, or your focus group, or your trusted advisors, or however you want to frame
Yeah.
that. I'm assuming
Yeah.
you're
I
alluding
mean,
to.
it's just, I mean, I just listen to what my clients need, And I try to learn whatever I can learn within my scope of practice to fulfill that need, because I want them coming to me for those treatments, because you know what I mean? So, and
Yeah.
it's not, so it's like if it seems to be more abundant of, you know, talking about firming skin or whatever your client base is, then that's where I kind of like research and like, oh, what machines are out there, or I'm on different groups, you know, so then I can ask other professionals, or I'll see what, you know, I'm on a lot of esthetician groups, so it's like then you see what people post about new equipment that they have found. So it's just like, you know, once you figure out what your clients kind of want, and it's always evolving, it's not like it's just going to stay the same, but then it just gives you goals, and even things that you hear that are out there that are trending right now. I mean, brows are big, and lips, and just, you know, things like that. So there's, you know, lashes are huge, you know, so there's just like, oh, what can I do to learn to bring in that clientele in? So now
Right.
I do lash lifts, you know, I'm doing brow lamination and brow tinting, brow shaping. So it's just like you just kind of learn with what kind of people too that you're wanting to attract as well. Because I
Yeah.
like to, you know, I like I really like people that are excited about their skin, or really need, you know, I'm here to help, and they might not even know anything what they need to do for their skin, but they trusted my advice, and I can come up with programs for everybody within. I know some people's budgets are different than other, or time frame is different than others. So when I meet with my client and I get to know my client, and then I can, you know, suggest different things. There's different ways that we can go, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
customizing is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, providing bespoke solutions that are not boilerplate, cookie cutter, one size
Yes,
fits all is an imperative, obviously. But I think
I
that
always say that cookie cutter. We're not cookies. We're not being cut. Everybody's individual. Even though I have like a kind of protocol per treatment, I'm going to tweak it some way for that person right then and there.
Mhm.
So that's where you really stand out, and people really feel that you care, and you know, you build that relationship and trust. And when you're really all about them in that moment for their skin, not what you just did for the client before you or whatever. So, or whatever they're, you know, needing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think to put what you've said in a sentence or an attempt
I
to
know I'm
do
a
so.
rambler. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, 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 no.
I'm such a
That's
rambler.
what I want. My job is to take all the genius that you share and package it in a sentence and deliver it to the
You're
audience.
so
So
good. Thank you.
here's what I heard then. So when it comes to getting a finger on the pulse of what your customers actually want, when you're looking at new devices to add, the most reliable way to get an idea on what that looks like is to not even ask, but to
Right.
listen. So
Yeah.
the delineation is, listen, stop the surveys. They're not reliable. They're not
Right.
reliable. What is reliable is listening for signals. A signal would be, yeah, God, my brows are just, I hate them. They're too bushy. I look like who's the person from Austin Powers, the unibrow? Uh,
Oh
whoever,
gosh. Oh
whoever
yeah.
that
Yes.
person is, right?
Yeah.
And so if they just naturally come to you and say, God, I'm really struggling with my loose skin on my submental area, what can you do for me? Wow, there's a powerful signal in the midst of the noise that would be produced if you were to take a survey. Now, I've failed miserably to put that in a sentence, but the idea is just listen. And like Sophia said, the better you know your customers and what their struggles are, and what they desire as their future state of their appearance, the way they feel, and the rest of it, the better off and better suited you'll be to deliver on where they have those gaps currently. And by them, I mean you with your menu, and you can build out your menu to optimize to achieve, or rather help them achieve their goals as a result of listening for this signal
Yes.
that is, like I just said, my brows look like a unibrow or whatever it is, as opposed to
Yes.
asking. So I think the takeaway is don't do surveys. Listen. It's a more reliable
Yeah.
way
Just
of getting an
listen.
idea.
Yeah. Listen to them. Listen to their story and what they're looking for. Some people are just wanting that, literally just want the relaxation I mean, everybody wants the relaxation, but some people are looking for really results. They're wanting to do a few treatments or wanting to do a series, and some people are just looking for that healthy glow or just a little something every few months. So it's just kind of listening to what each client needs and fulfilling their needs as much as you can and go from there.
And by the way, if you want to earn the trust of your customers for life, listen, ask clarifying questions. What do you mean by this? I don't understand. Help me understand. I don't get it. Teach me. What are you trying to improve so that I can have clarity and exactitude on what I can do to deliver those results to you, as opposed to doing what a lot of used car salesmen like to do, which is, oh, you're looking for a car. Perfect. I've got just the car for you. It's this little Miata. You have no idea what my needs are.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So open up your
Fulfilling
ears.
the need.
Exactly. Spoken like a true goddess, scholar, polymath, genius, Sophia Wixson. There it is. Okay, well let's let's look at parking the car here and wrapping the show. So the theme of our exits for this show is always levers and landmines. So what are some of the things, or maybe the thing that you have done that has produced the most significant improvements in the business? And then we'll talk landmines. So what is that big lever for you that you've been able to yank that's improved the state of the business so far in your 4.5 years of being at the current location that you're at?
Well, I mean, word of mouth. I mean, I have word of mouth has been the best thing. I provide a great treatment. People tell their friends. I used to have a referral program at the beginning that helped, like, where they gave out a card to refer. I mean, they saw my business card with like a coupon, but now I'm not. Now I'm at the point where I really don't like to discount my services at all. So, so yeah, I definitely do that. Now, landmines.
Yeah, so I'll ask the question a little bit differently. So
Go ahead.
it's a bit. I think I might have butchered the first question. that's my
Okay,
fault.
what did I
Okay,
say wrong?
no worries, no
Oh,
worries. My fault. It's always my fault. Everything in life is my fault. Extreme ownership. Hashtag Jocko, whatever his name is, the Navy SEAL, the guy who wrote Extreme Ownership. So I'm of the accord person that everything in life is my fault, but that's beside the point. Anyway, so
anyways.
landmines. Okay, so here's the question. What is the one thing that you have done in your business so far that has been the most negative or produced the biggest negative outcome that, if you could, in hindsight, avoid, would lead to you avoiding that decision? It could have been a product that you added, someone you partnered with, an advertising angle, whatever. What has been that one biggest, nastiest landmine that the listeners would be behooved to avoid themselves?
Well, I have like jumped into random advertising things that ended up not working out. So I kind of, not saying you need to pay for advertising, but really check into who you're advertising with, because there's so many people out there. So that has been one big landmine that I learned from the beginning that cost me money that ended up not being worth spent. I mean, I have added treatments that, I mean, every treatment I guess I've added, but there have been treatments that I've like, oh, okay, well, this one's not as popular, or this one I'd rather replace it with. So I mean, I do change with that too as well. So, but I would say one of my biggest would be when I didn't choose the right advertising and spent
Yeah,
all this money that wasn't what. So I mean, that was one of them
that
that just first
sucks.
came to mind. Also, like just like oh, I should like sometimes not acting on when I'm like, oh, I should probably call that person or text them. I haven't seen them in 6 months. I wonder how they're doing. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I should do that more often. That's one thing that I get on myself, because I think about them. I just need to execute and text them. So, or
Yeah,
call them to, when you haven't seen people in a while. So I guess,
yeah.
because I'm like, I have thought about you, but I haven't called or texted. So
But there's
that's
no
one thing
proof.
that I get on myself about. Like, just do it. Just do it sometimes.
Nike, just do it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in closing, then, um, because I'm sure the listeners want to know, is there something about that decision that you made to advertise with whoever that was a red flag that in retrospect, now you know to look out for that red flag that the listeners, or would be good for the listeners to know as they're thinking about adding advertisers or whatever? Is there something that you saw that now you know, oh, I shouldn't do that because this person had this, or whatever?
Well, look if they have some kind of weird contract or anything like that, because that was something I didn't realize I had a contract, and then I had to, yeah. So that was at the very beginning of my business. So that has been quite a few years, but so I have actually been more lenient to advertising. So that's when I've just built by word of mouth, and I'm still a little lenient with advertising because I really sometimes don't know, I guess just making sure they're a legit company, or you maybe heard of them from somebody else, because I get people all the time messaging me for advertising, and it's like, I don't know. So I just ignore them. And so I guess just maybe even asking other businesses what they've advertised with, or, something like that, to kind of get a better perspective on who you're advertising with, because there's so many people out there right now advertising for everything. So I really don't, I guess I'm not really the professional on that. That's my lower, one of my not so good things. So I don't really pay as much for advertising just because of
Yeah.
that leniency.
Well, I would say on that note, since we're getting close to being out of time here, I think as a referral or recommendation for some teams that are really good with managing advertising campaigns, et cetera. If you listeners are looking for a recommendation on who to go to, you can either email me, austin@cryoskin.com, or Sophia, I don't know if you have anybody in mind. I'm thinking Patient Rhino and Brandon Yu, but do you have any recommendations yourself who you would point people to for advertising?
I mean, yeah, for that, Brandon,
Brandon
that would
Yu.
be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So listeners, if you want to get connected to Brandon and get an introduction, you can just email me. Again, it's Austin@Cryoskin. So CRYO skin, SKIN.com. It'll get you connected to Brandon or one of the guys at Patient Rhino if you're looking for some help getting more appointments on the calendar and the rest of it. So anywho, I wish we had more time. We're already out. It's been an
I
hour just
know.
about, and we're already out of time. It's insane. We had so much fun.
Yes, this has been great. Thanks for listening to hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but yeah, this has been great. Nice talking
I
with
had a
you.
lot of
Thanks for
fun.
having me.
Of course. Well, let's not leave the listeners on the hook. Where can they connect with you if they want to reach out and get into your universe?
My website is aestheticsbysophia.com with AESTHETICSBYSOPHIA.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and then even email me, SOPHIAWIXSON@gmail.com.
There you have it. Sophia Wixson from Aesthetics by Sophia out in Indiana and South Bend. Right? You're
Right
still in
by
South
Notre
Bend.
Dame. So if you're
Okay.
in Northern
Just,
area.
go Notre Dame. And if you're in South Bend, go in, get a treatment from Sophia. You'll be glad that you did. All right. Well, and on that note, let's jump off and get back to our day jobs.
Awesome. You have a great one. Nice talking with you.
All right, Sophia,
Take
you
care,
take
everyone.
care.
Thanks for listening. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.